We always tease each other. He was, after I gave birth, he was like, oh my gosh, if I lost you and I, went to the park with our 3 kids, I mean, think of the ladies I could. Like, this is a horrible thing to say. And he's like, I mean, I've got a long list. And I was like, oh, really? Because I just have 1 on my list. I didn't.
A high-stakes legal battle has exploded in Hollywood, dragging 2 major entertainment figures, Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, into an all-out war. It all started months ago when Blake shocked everyone by slapping Justin with a massive lawsuit, claiming he was guilty of some serious wrongdoing. And this wasn't just some minor dispute. Her lawsuit was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Fans and insiders alike were stunned by the sheer scale of the accusation. At first, many assumed Justin would try to quietly make this go away, either by settling fast or finding a legal loophole to shrink the case. But no, he fired back harder than anyone expected. Instead of backing down, he hit Blake with his own even bigger lawsuit, demanding even more money than she had originally sought. With that move, he made one thing crystal clear. He wasn't just going to fight Blake's claims, he was willing to go nuclear if needed. With lawsuits flying back and forth, the stage was set for what could be one of Hollywood's most explosive courtroom showdowns in years. Legal analysts immediately weighed in, noting that no matter how famous they were, one of them would eventually have to fold to avoid career-crushing damage. But neither Blake nor Justin showed any sign of backing down. Instead, the tension kept rising, hinting at a brutal legal war ahead. The moment this story hit the media, it dominated the headlines, sparking intense public debate. Analysts, fans, and industry insiders tore into the claims, trying to predict who had the stronger case and who stood to lose everything. Speculation ran wild over the motives behind this legal war. Some believed Blake, known for her flawless public image and impressive career, must have had some serious ammunition to justify launching such a massive lawsuit. Others argued that Justin, an actor and director with plenty to lose, wouldn't have dared to hit back with an even bigger claim unless he had rock-solid evidence on his side. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It had erupted into a full-blown media circus. Social media was flooded with theories, accusations, and intense debates, making online speculation just as important as the legal proceedings themselves. After months of filings, discovery battles, and explosive accusations from both camps, the case finally reached a major turning point: the first courtroom showdown. The scene outside the courthouse? Pure Hollywood. Paparazzi packed the sidewalks, cameras flashed non-stop, and onlookers strained for a glimpse of the warring stars. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Inside, the preliminary hearing barely lasted 90 minutes, but every second was filled with high-stakes drama. Heated clashes, strategic legal plays, and subtle hints at what could unfold in the main trial kept everyone on edge. Unofficial sources revealed that the judge spent most of the session reviewing the explosive allegations, the massive scope of the trial ahead, and whether both legal teams were ready for war. No one expected a tame opening act, and they were not disappointed. Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, stormed in like a man on a mission. Dressed in a sharp, tailored suit and oozing confidence, he wasted no time going on the attack. From the moment he stepped into the courtroom, he made one thing crystal clear. He was there to defend Justin with everything he had. Friedman tore into Blake's lawsuit, arguing that it was built on shaky evidence and designed to drag Justin's name through the mud. He accused Blake's legal team of playing the media game, manipulating the public narrative before Justin even had a chance to fight back. The tension between the two sides was electric, setting the stage for what promises to be a brutal, no-holds-barred legal battle. This battle wasn't just happening in court. It was playing out in the press, too. And Justin's camp wasn't happy about it. Earlier in the dispute, Blake's legal team had leaked damning information to a major news outlet, with barely half a day's notice given to Justin. It was a brutal move, one that left him scrambling to respond. Unsurprisingly, Justin's attorney, Brian Friedman, was furious. He blasted the tactic as a deliberate ploy to trap his client and force him into a defensive corner. But Blake's lawyers hit back hard. They denied any attempt to manipulate public perception, insisting that Blake was the real victim and had only gone public to expose the truth. But despite their firm stance, Friedman wasn't having it. He immediately turned the argument against them, reminding the court that the initial media frenzy had been devastating for Justin from the start. The damaging reports had framed him in a negative light before he even had a chance to tell his side of the story. If Blake's team was going to use the media, Friedman argued, then Justin had every right to fight back just as loudly. And fight back he did! Friedman made it clear that Justin wouldn't be silenced. He argued that Justin had every reason to defend himself publicly, whether that meant talking to journalists, posting online, or even launching a website to showcase what he called irrefutable evidence. His aggressive approach was so relentless that even some court observers noticed Blake's attorneys looking visibly rattled. It was clear Friedman was pulling out all the stops. He wasn't just there to argue, he was on the attack. Sensing the threat, Blake's team made a major legal move. They asked the court to shut Friedman down. They wanted a formal order banning him from making any more public comments, appearing on TV, posting on social media, or speaking out in any way that could influence public opinion. Their argument? Friedman's media blitz was making it impossible for them to counter the growing wave of public bias. They insisted that his high-profile statements were drowning out their side of the story, and if the court didn't step in, the entire trial could be tainted by public perception. The tension? Unreal. With both sides fighting for control of the narrative, one thing was obvious. This case wasn't just about legal arguments. It was a war for public opinion. Blake's legal team wasn't backing down. They argued that Friedman's sensational media tactics were turning the lawsuit into a circus, distracting from the real legal issues. To them, this wasn't about justice anymore. It was about grabbing headlines. But the judge wasn't buying it. In his ruling, he pointed out the obvious. Both sides had already been eagerly talking about the case in public. So why should Justin's team suddenly be silenced while Blake's camp continued pushing their narrative? That wasn't going to happen. With that, the judge shut down Blake's motion for a gag order, giving Friedman full freedom to keep defending Justin loudly and publicly. The mood in the courtroom instantly shifted. Justin's supporters celebrated the ruling as a huge early win. Meanwhile, Blake's team had to face the harsh reality. Their attempt to control the public narrative had just collapsed. Then came another bombshell. Blake's lawyers scrambled when they discovered something they hadn't seen coming. Justin had launched a website, a full-blown, dedicated platform aimed at exposing key documents, files, and evidence related to the case. At that moment, everything escalated. While the website hadn't yet gone public with the most damaging details, Friedman promised that it would soon be filled with an extensive collection of videos, legal documents, and key messages. His claim? The materials would prove Justin's innocence and expose Blake's lawsuit as nothing more than a tactical hit job meant to ruin his reputation. Blake's lawyers were livid. They immediately fired back, slamming the website as an attempt to manipulate public opinion and prejudice potential jurors before the case even got to trial. This wasn't justice, they argued. It was a media stunt. But Friedman? He didn't flinch. Instead, he turned the argument against them, reminding the court that Blake's team went to the press first. If they were allowed to air accusations in the media, why shouldn't Justin have the same right to fight back in public? Once again, the judge sided with Friedman. Justin had every right to defend himself, especially since Blake's side had started the media war. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, Blake's team made a desperate move. They rushed to introduce a last-minute legal maneuver related to the upcoming deposition, a critical moment where both sides would give sworn statements that could later be used in court. Depositions are high-risk territory. Every word is on the record, and a single misstep could wreck a case. For Blake, this was a moment that could make or break her claims. So her legal team tried to take control. In a bold move, they petitioned the court to let them handpick who would question Blake, clearly aiming to sidestep Friedman's brutal interrogation style. But the judge wasn't having it. Ruling swiftly, the court shut down Blake's request. Legally, the opposing side always gets to conduct depositions, and this case would be no exception. That meant Friedman, or another member of Justin's legal team, would be free to grill Blake without restrictions. This was a massive blow to Blake's team. Not only was Friedman still in control, but he now had a golden opportunity to fire off direct, potentially devastating questions, and she'd have to answer under oath. For Blake, this was a nightmare scenario. Unlike press interviews, where statements can be carefully scripted and controlled, depositions are no-nonsense, no-spin environments. If Blake's story had any inconsistencies, they would be exposed, and that could cripple her case in trial. Legal analysts were quick to point out the obvious. If Blake was completely confident in her claims, she should have nothing to fear from answering direct questions. But the fact that her team was desperately trying to keep Friedman away from her, that screamed of unease. It raised the question, was there something she didn't want uncovered? Then, just when it seemed like the hearing was wrapping up, the judge dropped another bombshell. Both lawsuits were officially merged into one. This meant that instead of two separate trials, one for Blake's original lawsuit and one for Justin's counterclaim, everything would now play out in one unified high-stakes battle. The reasoning? Efficiency. The judge wanted to avoid duplicative litigation. But there was no mistaking the consequences. This just got even bigger. With both lawsuits colliding into a single legal showdown, the courtroom drama was about to hit an entirely new level. With the lawsuits merged into one, the stakes had skyrocketed. Now, the judge and jury wouldn't just be looking at Blake's accusations, they'd be weighing Justin's counterclaims at the exact same time. The two narratives were now locked together, unfolding side by side in a single make-or-break battle. For Blake, this was a crushing shift. Before, there had been room to maneuver, to adjust legal strategies as the cases progressed separately. Now, every argument, every claim, every shred of evidence would be directly stacked against Justin's rebuttals in real time. There was no escape hatch, no room to retreat, and that pressure was starting to show. Blake's supporters, many of whom had long admired her grace, talent, and polished image, found themselves split. Some stood by her, convinced she wouldn't risk her career unless she had real evidence to back her claims. She had every right, they argued, to fight for what she believed was true. But others, they were starting to waver. After multiple courtroom losses, doubts crept in. Was this the right fight? Was it worth the risk? With Friedman gaining ground and promising damning evidence, public perception was shifting. If he delivered on those promises, Justin's legal team could completely flip the narrative, turning Blake's lawsuit into a costly, public misstep. Meanwhile, Justin's supporters were fired up, and even those who weren't necessarily on his side, just casual onlookers obsessed with legal drama, were hooked. Everyone wanted to know, what was in that so-called treasure trove of evidence? What was Friedman holding back for the big reveal? And then there was Ryan Reynolds. Through all of this, Blake's husband had remained completely silent. No public statements, no social media posts, nothing. And that silence? It only fueled speculation. Insiders whispered that Ryan's influence could be the key to whether Blake dug in deeper or backed out. Some believed he was working behind the scenes, pushing for a quiet settlement to keep their empire intact. Others feared that if this case spiraled out of control, the financial fallout could be devastating, even for them. Because if this went to trial, and Blake lost badly, the judgment against her could be so massive that it threatened their entire fortune. For years, Blake and Ryan have carefully crafted a golden couple image, filled with humor, philanthropy, and a picture-perfect public presence. But this lawsuit? This was a storm they weren't used to. Their carefree online persona now clashed with the intense, high-stakes legal battle unfolding in real time. And with each new development, the tension kept building. Would Ryan Reynolds step in? That was the big question. So far, he had remained eerily silent. But could he really stay on the sidelines when the potential fallout could reshape both of their careers? Would he push for a quiet resolution? Or would he stand by while Blake went all in? For Blake, the risks were growing by the day. This wasn't just about courtroom battles anymore. The bigger threat loomed over her career. Hollywood hates controversy, especially the kind that drags on in the public eye. Studios and executives live by risk management, and many might hesitate to attach her name to major projects while she's entangled in a legal firestorm. Would audiences still want to see her on screen if every interview, every press tour was overshadowed by this lawsuit? Would producers take the gamble on a star facing accusations this serious? And then there was the wild card, Friedman. He had been promising bombshell evidence, vowing to rip apart Blake's case and prove that this lawsuit was more about shaping public opinion than seeking real justice. If he delivered on that promise, the damage to Blake's reputation could be irreversible. But even with all the momentum swinging toward Justin's side, nothing in a courtroom is ever certain. Trials are unpredictable. Judges and juries have minds of their own. New evidence can emerge out of nowhere. A single misstep by Friedman's team, a moment of overconfidence, a legal loophole they overlook, could flip the case upside down. Because in the end, no matter how strong a case might seem in pre-trial motions, once you step into that courtroom, anything can happen. Legal experts who have followed high-stakes lawsuits like this one all say the same thing. Nothing is ever guaranteed. But right now, Justin Baldoni and his legal bulldog, Brian Friedman, are riding a serious wave of momentum. And in a public-facing courtroom war, momentum is everything. It doesn't just shape negotiations, it shifts public perception, influences power plays behind the scenes, and can pressure one side into submission before the trial even begins. The final verdict? That's still a long way off. A formal trial date has been set for March 2026, unless something dramatic happens first. A settlement, a dismissal, an unexpected twist? Any of these could alter the course of events. But if nothing changes, then this case is about to turn into a drawn-out legal saga stretching over months or even years, with bombshells, brutal depositions, and high-stakes courtroom battles keeping the public glued to every update. And if it goes all the way to trial, it'll be a spectacle like no other. A full-scale public showdown where every single detail, every claim, every counterclaim, every shred of evidence gets exposed for the world to see. And that could be disastrous for Blake Lively, because if Justin and Friedman really do have the kind of damning documentation they claim, if they deliver on their promise to disprove Blake's allegations, the fallout could be career-altering. The signs aren't looking great for her. She's already suffered multiple legal setbacks. Every attempt to rein in Friedman's aggressive strategy has been shut down by the judge. She's lost the fight to handpick her interrogator, meaning she'll have to face Friedman's relentless questioning head-on. And Justin? He's not backing down. Not only has he secured his right to speak publicly, but sources say he's just getting started. Every available platform, media, social networks, his own dedicated website, is expected to be fully leveraged to bolster his version of the story. The battle has only just begun. And with every new development, one question grows louder. How much more can Blake withstand? Once a celebrity feud enters the courtroom, control is no longer in their hands. And when it spills into the public eye with this kind of intensity, the narrative takes on a life of its own. No one can predict where it will go, or who will come out unscathed. For Blake Lively, a loss could mean more than just a massive financial hit. It could leave a permanent stain on her career, a controversy that follows her for years, impacting her roles, endorsements, and public image. For Justin Baldoni, the stakes are just as high. If he fails to disprove Blake's claims, his own career and reputation could be thrown into chaos, even with the early legal victories in his favor. And now, Hollywood, the media, and millions of fans are on the edge of their seats. The biggest question looms large. Will either side back down before this turns into an all-out war? Will cooler heads step in to negotiate a settlement, saving them both from a trial that could destroy everything? Or will this battle only escalate, leading to a high-stakes, no-holds-barred showdown that will reshape their legacies forever? One thing's for sure, this fight is far from over. So what do you think? Will Blake and Justin settle? Or are we headed for a courtroom battle that changes everything? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe to stay on top of every twist and turn in this legal drama. See you in the next one.